class with pranam mantras. Om Ajnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatam Ham Vande Shri Gurun Dinataranam Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Iti Namine Shri Varsavanavi Devi Daitaya Kripabde Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daine Prabhave Namaha Madhurya Jwala Premadhya Sri Rupanuga Bhaktida Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namastute Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudhapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Nama Gaura Kishoraya Sakshad Vairagya Murtaye Vipralambara Sambodhe Padambhujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachidananda Namine Gaura Sakti Swarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gaur Virva Bhumistum Nirdasta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvoma Shri Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gaurtuse Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Sarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Saktikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Jayatam Suratopango Mama Mande Matirgati Vatsarvassapadambojo Shri Radha Madan Mohano Divyad Vrindaranya Kalpadrumadaha Srimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Srimad Radha Shila Govinda Devo Prishtali Bisevyamana Usmarami Shriman Rasara Sarambi Vamsi Bhatta Tatastita Karshan Venu Suner Gopi Shri Gopinathaya Shri Astunaha Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tado Jayamudirayet Srinvatam Sukata Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtanaha Hridyantasto hi abhadrani vidunote shuhisyatam Nashta prayashu vadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya Bhagavati uttama slokir bhaktir bhavati naistiki. Hare Krishna, and thank you all for joining. We are continuing our discussion on Canto 2, Chapter 9. The chapter is titled as Answers by Citing Lord's Version. So currently we are discussing, or we will start discussing verse number 31. However, I'll just give a small recap of what happened in the last discussion so far. So in the previous class, we saw that, the Lord is very pleased with Lord Brahma. The Supreme Lord is very pleased with Lord Brahma and invites Lord Brahma to ask for any benedictions, any boons. Why Lord is happy? Because Brahmaji performed his tapasya very nicely, and nobody was there to assess him. He had just heard the instruction tapah, and the basis of that, he understood that he has a desire to perform creation. However, he needs the blessing of the Lord. So the Lord's current instruction is to perform tapasya. So he went underwent tapasya for long time, 1,000 celestial year, and after that, the Lord appeared in front of him. And the Lord was so happy with Brahmaji that he gave darshan of himself by coming in presence of Lord Brahma, appearing in presence of Lord Brahma. And at that same time, he also showed he gave the darshan of Vaikuntha. And then he said that the darshan of this myself and the darshan of, the Vaikuntha, which you are seeing, is the highest, is the ultimate benediction. So this is, he speaks in the verse number 21, that please ask for any benediction from me, O giver of benediction, because Brahmaji can also give benediction. But you may know that the ultimate benediction of all penance or all tapasya you have done is to see me in person. And earlier when he gave the darshan of Vaikuntha, Lord expressed that it is very rare to get darshan of Vaikuntha. Only person who has pleased me can only see my form and my abode. So after that, Brahmaji was very satisfied with this darshan, and he was very happy. And also, the Lord revealed that this word tapa was actually spoken by me. So Brahmaji was very happy, and tears started flowing from his eyes. He was so happy to see the Lord and have darshan of Lord as well as his abode. And then Lord Brahma said that you being super soul, you know everybody's desire, and you know also about everybody's endeavors. So what else can I ask? However, I have few questions. So these questions were meant for people like us to, understand through scriptures about the functioning of the Lord. Now I have seen everything. Brahmaji is saying that I have seen through my own eyes. However, I have a desire to know how all these things are functioning. Right? So therefore, Brahmaji asked 4 questions in verse 26 to 30. So the first question he is asking about is about Lord's form. He is asking about Lord's spiritual and material form. And then he asks about how the energies of the Lord, he was curious to know how these various energies of the Lord, they are functioning together. And then he wants to ask about Lord's activities in relation to material and spiritual energies. And then finally, he asks for Lord's service. Of course, he is having desire to serve, but he wants to serve without any pride or bondage. So please let me know, he wants to know or bless me in such a way that I don't get pride while performing this creation. So this is very important for us because when we perform our services, then and if we successfully perform and we get lot of credits from the devotees, praises from the devotees, we start thinking that it is because of me the things have happened. However, Brahmaji wants to, he's so humble that he wants to make sure that pride doesn't sink in. So therefore he asked this question. So immediately the Lord starts speaking. So in this section, which is 31 to 39, the Lord is going to speak he's going to give the 4 questions based on the questions that is being asked by Brahmaji. So he is going to answer in Catuh Sloki 1, 2, 3 and 4, which is verse number 33. Catuh Sloki 1 is 33. Verse 2 is 34, or answer to this verse 2 is 34, and answer to this question about activities is 35, and asking about Lord's service is answered in verse number 36. So before answering these questions, the Lord speaks about he gives like 2 verses. These verses can be considered as prelude to this Catuh Sloki verses, these 4 verses. So in total, Lord spoke like 7 verses. So 2 verses prior to the Catuh Sloki verses, and then the Catuh Sloki verses, and then 1 verse he explains how to apply whatever Krishna has explained in the Catuh Sloki. So in total, Lord explains this in 7 verses. So verse number 31 is as follows. Shri Bhagavan Vacha Jnanam Paramam Guhyam Me Yad Vijnanam Samanvitam Sarasyam Tad Angam Cha Grana Gaditam Maya. So the Lord says, what are you going to gain in this particular verse? He is explaining that what are you going to gain after hearing this Catuh Slokis, after the 4 verses which is going to speak later. So what are you going to gain after hearing this? So in the translation, Srila Prabhupada says that the personality of Godhead said, knowledge about me as described in the scripture is very confidential and it has to be realized in conjunction with devotional service. The necessary paraphernalia for that process is being explained by me. You may take it up carefully. So in the description it is given that Krishna is going to say, or the Lord is going to, here is the form of the Lord is the Vaikuntha form. So he is going to speak about the 4 things in this verse. First thing he is going to speak is that, Jnanam Paramam Guhyam Me. What are you going to gain from all these 4 verses? These are the things that you are going to gain. The first thing that you are going to gain is, or understand is, Jnanam Paramam Guhyam Me. The most secret knowledge of my form. So Krishna's form is not that easy to attain. So you are going to understand about this most secret form. You're going to get knowledge about my most secret form. Not only knowledge, but you'll also get realization of that form. So yad vijnanam samanvitam, that's the next line. Also you will get the realization of the form. And this realization, what Brahmaji is going to get, is actually explained in the next verse number 32. So what kind of realization Brahmaji is going to get? He will explain in more detail in the next verse. Now, how does one get the knowledge of this secret form of the Lord, right? So this knowledge is very secret, but the means to get this knowledge, which Krishna is saying over here by the word sa rahasyam. So the meaning of getting the realization, the means of getting the realization, and that is through the prema bhakti. And also the prema bhakti is not attained directly. One has to go through various steps. So the beginning step is Krishna indicating as tad angam. The means of achieving prema bhakti is through sadhana bhakti. So you also understand about the sadhana bhakti, the process. So these are the 4 things the Lord is saying to Brahmaji, that these are the 4 things you are going to understand when I speak these Catuh Sloki verses. So in the purport, Srila Prabhupada is saying that this is prelude to answering the Lord Brahma's question. So Prabhupada says that Lord Brahma is the topmost devotee of the Lord within the universe, and therefore the personality of Godhead replied his 4 principal inquiries in 4 important statements. So these are the Catuh Sloki, which are known as original Bhagavatam in 4 verses. These Brahma's questions are, what are the forms of the Lord both in matter and in transcendence? Second one is, how are the different energies of the Lord working? Third is, how does the Lord play with his different energies? And fourth is, how may Brahma be instructed to discharge the duty entrusted to him? So what was his duty? His duty was to create. He is a secondary creator. The prelude to this answer in this verse under discussion, wherein Lord informs Brahma that knowledge of him, the Supreme Absolute Truth, as it is stated in the revealed scripture, is very subtle and cannot be understood unless one is self-realized by the grace of the Lord. So this is the punchline, that if we have to understand this most secret knowledge, Paramam Guhyam Me, the only way is by the grace of the Lord, by the mercy of the Lord. We can make our efforts, however, it is finally or ultimately it is the grace of the Lord by which we can really understand this particular knowledge. So, what are the efforts that we can make as a devotee, as an aspiring devotee? So, we should receive this knowledge in parampara. Therefore, Prabhupada, it's very, very important to receive knowledge in parampara. Knowledge must be received in parampara. So, Prabhupada says the Lord says that Brahma may take the answers as he explained them. So, in this case, Lord Brahma heard the answers directly from the Supreme Lord. However, then he passed on to his disciples, to Narad Muni, and then Narad Muni further gave it to Vyasdev, and then Vyasdev wrote it down, and then it further came through the chain of disciplic succession to us. So this is the way to understand this knowledge. This means that transcendental knowledge of the Absolute Supreme Being can be known if it is made known by the Lord Himself. Unless the Lord becomes merciful on us, we will not get it. So, by mental speculation, nobody can get it. So, here Prabhupada immediately brings up the point that by mental speculation of the greatest mundane thinkers, the absolute truth cannot be understood. The mental speculator can reach up to the standard of impersonal Brahman realization, but factually, complete knowledge of transcendence beyond the knowledge of impersonal Brahman. So, they can only reach up to the state of Brahman through the mental speculation. Thus, it is called the supreme confidential wisdom. Out of many liberated souls, Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yadati Siddhaya. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says this. So, out of many liberated souls, someone may be qualified to know the personality of God. In Bhagavad Gita also, it is said the Lord Himself that out of hundreds and thousands of people, one may try for perfection in human life, and out of many liberated souls, one may know Him as He is. Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaschid Yadati Siddhaya Yatatamati Siddhanam Kaschid Metiman Tattvataha. One can understand the Lord as He is through Tattva. Therefore, the knowledge of the personality of God may be attained by devotional service only. So, this is the secret. It can be attained through the process of bhakti. Only bhaktas can understand. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. So, Prabhupada then explains this term rahasyam. So, what is this rahasyam? Rahasyam means very secretive thing. So, rahasyam means devotional service. That means our bhakti which we are performing is actually very rahasyam. Somehow or other, by the mercy of devotees, by the mercy of Guru, by the mercy of other senior devotees, by the mercy of our parampara, somehow or other we got it. So, we should not take it very cheaply. So, rahasyam means devotional service. Lord Krishna instructed Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita because he found Arjuna to be the devotee and friend. Bhakto si me sakha cheti. Without such qualification, one cannot enter into the mystery of Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, one cannot understand the personality of Godhead unless one becomes a devotee and discharges devotional service. So, this also means that performing devotional service is an integral part of it. Bhakti is not just devotion, it is devotional service. One has to engage, express their love by some kind of service. This mystery is love of Godhead. Therein lies the main qualification of knowing the mystery of the personality of Godhead, the process of bhakti. And to attain the stage of transcendental love of Godhead, regulative principle of devotional service must be followed. So, now Tad Angam, Prabhupada is bringing that part. Tad Angam. So, in order to reach the stage of prema, one has to start from sadhana bhakti. In particular, Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. Regulative principle means following the rules and regulations, vidhi. So, that is regulative principles of devotional service must be followed. The regulative principles are called as Vidhi Bhakti, or devotional service of the Lord, and they can be practiced by a neophyte. So these are practicing devotees. This is the path for the practicing devotees who has some faith, Adav Shraddha. It begins with Adav Shraddha and the stages of bhakti. With then Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Anartha Nivritti. So it keeps on going like that till we reach Prema. But it begins with this following the rules and regulations once perform the Vedi Sadhana Bhakti. Or the devotional service of the Lord, they can be practiced by a neophyte with their present senses. Such regulative principles are mainly based on hearing and chanting of the glories of Lord, like what we are engaged reading the scriptures. So that is hearing, comes under hearing, and then we perform our chanting. Or also we teach others the same thing. And such hearing and chanting of the glories of the Lord can be made possible in association of devotees only, right? Lord Chaitanya therefore recommended 5 principles for attaining perfection in the devotional service. The first of the association with the devotees, and in the association of devotees we are performing hearing. Second is chanting of the glories of the Lord. Third is hearing Srimad Bhagavatam from pure devotees. Fourth, residing in holy places or holy dham connected with the Lord. And fifth, which is worshipping the deities of the Lord with devotion. Such rules and regulations are part of devotional service. So these are the 64, these are the last 6 of the 64 angas, 64 principles, 64 different ways which you can perform devotional service. These are the last 5. That's the most important. Such rules and regulations are part of devotional service. So as requested by Lord Brahma, the personality of Godhead will explain all about the 4 questions put forward by Brahma and others, which are part and parcel of the same question. So Krishna is going to answer the questions which is asked by Brahmaji in sequence. Right? So the next verse, and as we discussed earlier, that in this verse Krishna is going to reveal about what this realization of the form means. Jnanam, and then the jnana is the knowledge. Jnanam paramam guhyam, which is the most secret knowledge of my form, or knowledge of the form, which is most secret. Not only knowledge, but he is also going to get the realization. Yat vijnana samanvitam. So he is also going to get the realization. So what is that realization he is going to get is explained in this verse. Yavanaham yatha bhavo yadrupa guna karmakaha tathaiva tattva vijnanam astu te mad anugrahat. So here Prabhupada translates as all of me, namely my actual eternal form, my transcendental existence, color, qualities and activities, and let all be awakened within you by factual realization out of my causeless mercy. So Krishna expands this, the meaning of realization of the form by saying to Brahma that by my mercy, you will come to know. So in whatever form Krishna is appearing, as the incarnations of Krishna are appearing in this world, or in other words, whenever Lord incarnates in this material world, at that time Brahma would be able to understand what? He would be able to understand the dimensions. He would have the dimensions of the Lord, the intentions of the Lord, the form of the Lord, the qualities of the Lord, and about the pastimes of the Lord. So this is actually realization. Right? So this includes everything. So he will be able to understand when the Lord incarnates in this world. So if you see what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's commentary, he actually expands each of these terms, right? Jnanam, right? What is jnanam means? What is vijnana means, or knowledge? and what is Vijnana means, and basically the word by word he is explaining. So let's go through the commentary of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So he's saying knowledge or jnana, what is beyond the senses. So sometimes we can know through our senses, which is called as pratyaksha praman, whatever we are seeing in front of us, through our senses, right? Eyes, ears, nose, touch, all this, and tongue, taste. So that is one kind of knowledge. But sometimes we don't understand things which is beyond our capacity to understand. So in this case, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is saying that the knowledge or the jnana which is beyond the senses and which is true should appear to some degree in those with pure hearts who have faith. So with people who have some faith, like the knowledge of the soul, we don't see the soul. Through our eyes we can't see the soul. But people, they generally, you ask somebody about the soul and all these things, do they understand what is soul? So they'll say yes, yes, yes. Or sometimes they will disregard, they'll say they don't understand it. But knowing through knowledge theoretically is one thing, but understanding it, which is beyond senses, to some extent is a different thing. So based on the faith of a person in that knowledge, then they will actually get the realization. That is jnana or knowledge. Vijnana refers to realization that the entity beyond the senses, direct vision of my swarupa as it is. This cannot occur without prema and sadhana bhakti. Knowing this, the Lord gives blessing for that purpose. So he is saying that you'll know about me, and you also actually have realization of the things which is not directly known to you. Yeah? But that can be attained through prema and sadhana bhakti. And here also Lord is giving blessing that by my blessing you will, or by my causeless mercy, you will get to know it. So here the word yavan means dimension of the Lord's various limbs in combination, their thickness or thinness, lightness, elevation, or roundness. So even about the form, the Lord has a certain form, has a certain kind of dimensions. So Brahmaji is going to know all about that. Now each incarnation has a purpose. So Brahmaji would also know about the purpose of the intention. So why did this incarnation appeared? So yatha bhava means the type of intentions. Yadrupa refers to various forms, their complexions, the numbers of arms, like Krishna has 2 arms, Lord Ram also has 2 arms, Narasimha and others have different number of arms, and so he is going to know all about that. Guna refers to the Lord's qualities such as affection for his devotees. So Brahma would understand this. Karma refers to the pastimes such as lifting Govardhan or marrying Lakshmi, or helping his friend Arjuna to take away his sister, run with his sister. So that kind of pastimes will be difficult to understand. However, Brahma ji got the blessing that he will understand these things. Even lifting of Govardhan is not easy to understand. And therefore, even with this kind of understanding, we see that Lord Brahma was actually confused in one point of time. Therefore, he performed this Brahma Vimohan Leela. So then the Lord gives the blessings towards the end of the verse. He says, Astu te mad anugrahat. By my mercy, you will know all these things. So then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that may you have true realization of whatever tathaiva, the dimensions, intentions, forms, qualities, and activities manifest. Though these blessings alone indicates mercy, the Lord adds the phrase mad anugrahat, causeless mercy. So it's a very interesting thing that Lord specifically mentions this mad anugrahat, because if you understand about all these intentions, dimensions, form, this actually means mercy. Without mercy you cannot understand. So Vishwanath Chakravarti is writing, this indicates that by the gradual increase of sadhana and prema bhakti, which are special functions of Lord Supreme Kripa Shakti, when Brahma realizes greater degree of sweetness in Lord's forms and qualities, he will realize directly the Vaja form of Krishna, sweeter and rarer than the present form of realization. So not only about this form, but as Brahmaji will progress uh, more towards Prema Bhakti, he will see the Vraja pastimes. That's the indication Vishwanath Chakravarti is giving. Thus, other explanation of the 4 verses propounding impersonal aspect of the Lord are naturally depicted by this verse. How? Because the impersonalists say that Lord doesn't have form. However, in this verse, the Lord Himself is saying that by mercy, by my mercy, you will see, you will be able to understand the dimension, which is the dimension is there is some form. The intention, the purpose of the form which is there, and the more details about the form and the qualities in the past tense. If somebody is engaging in past tense, means there is a form. Somebody has a quality, that means there is a form involved in it. So this particular verse, it defeats the impersonal philosophy. So again, Srila Prabhupada's purport, we see that Prabhupada is stressing on this word in the beginning of the purport about the mercy part of it, which is Mad Anugrahat. So Prabhupada says, the secret of success in understanding the intricacies of knowledge of the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, is the causeless mercy of the Lord. There is no cause. So this is discussed more in the book called as, or book written by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Madhurya Kadambini. So soon we are going to start reading that book. And in the beginning, it is discussed that how somebody gets bhakti. What is the reason of getting, or how one can get bhakti? Is this causeless or does it have a cause? So all these things are discussed. So here Prabhupada is mentioning that it is a causeless mercy of the Lord. However, it actually, in a way, it's not really causeless. It's a mercy of the devotees of the Lord who are actually distributing bhakti. So unless the devotee distributes bhakti or gives bhakti to another person, they won't get it. It's the responsibility of the devotee to give that mercy. The devotee who are carrying this mercy with them, to give mercy to others. So Prabhupada appropriately puts an example. Even in the material world, the father of many sons discloses the secret of his position to the pet sons. So father may have multiple sons, but some of them are pet to them, or one of them is very pet. So the father will disclose all the secret about himself to that particular son. The father discloses the confidence unto the son whom he thinks worthy. An important man in social order can be known by his mercy only. If you want to know about somebody, like the president or the prime minister or even the chief minister or anybody in that case, if you want to know about them, somebody superior to us, only they can tell about themselves. So similarly over here, only Lord can reveal about himself. Similarly, one must be very dear to the Lord in order to know the Lord. The Lord is unlimited. No one can know Him completely. But one's advancement in the transcendental loving service of the Lord can make one eligible to know the Lord. So the more we make progress, the more the Lord will reveal Himself. This is the secret. Here, we can see that the Lord is sufficiently pleased with Brahmaji, and therefore he offers his causeless mercy to him, so that Brahmaji may have factual realization of the Lord by his mercy only. This makes the things very clear, the way Srila Prabhupada explained, with the appropriate example. So even the only worthy person can know closely about his superior. So similarly, The Lord was so pleased. I mean, we read in the previous classes that the Lord was so pleased. He expressed that again and again. Now, what are the verdict of the Vedas, the scriptures? So in the Vedas, it is said that a person cannot know the absolute truth, the personality of Godhead, simply by the dint of mundane education or intellectual gymnastics. One can know the supreme truth if one has unflinching faith in the bona fide spiritual master as well as in the Lord. Yeah, this is faith, Shraddha is the key factor. And here, the faith, before faith, Prabhupada is adding the word unflinching faith. Means totally having total faith on the statements of Guru, Sadhu and Shastra as well as Krishna. The more we have faith, the more we are stronger, and then the more we are becoming closer to Krishna, and then we become automatically start getting the mercy of the Lord. In Bhagavad Gita also it is said that the Lord reserves the right of not being exposed to everyone. He keeps himself concealed from the faithless by his Yogamaya potency. That is in 7th chapter. Krishna is saying this. So, whenever Srila Prabhupada gets an opportunity, he actually start defying this impersonalism. Because impersonalism is such a thing, it's a kind of, it's very attractive in a way. And it's like the second best. The bhakti is the best, the second best is impersonalism. So people get very attracted because, no service, anand hi anand, like that. They think like that. No responsibility, no relationship. So it becomes very attractive to some people. In fact, most of the people. So therefore, wherever Srila Prabhupada gets opportunity, he defies impersonalism. So this particular verse, it's talking about dimensions, qualities, forms and all these things. So Prabhupada is bringing up this point, defying impersonalism. To the faithful, the Lord reveals himself in his forms, quality and pastimes. The Lord is not formless, as wrongly conceived by the impersonalist. But his form is not like one that we have experienced. See, in this material world, whatever form which we see, is Nirananda. And the Lord's form is Sachidananda. So these forms are going through the experience, the 6 transformations, right? Like taking birth, growing, and then staying for some time, and all these things. All the forms are going through Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi. So the Lord discloses his form even to the extent of measurement to his pure devotees. And that is the meaning of Yavan, as explained by Srila Jiva Goswami, the greatest scholar of Srimad Bhagavatam. So as I have taken it from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport, so it is also there in Srila Jiva Goswami's purport, in Krama Sandarbha. The Lord discloses the transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conception of the form of the Lord. Right? This is mental speculation. However, actually, the people, this is actually all based, we'll see in the second Catuh Sloki in particular. This point is discussed. That based on the faith, people have knowledge. People who cannot accept the personal form of the Supreme Lord, they accept this impersonal feature of the Lord. So the Lord discloses this transcendental nature of his existence. The mundane wranglers make mundane conception of the form of the Lord. It is said in the revealed scriptures that the Lord has no mundane form. Therefore, a person with poor fund of knowledge conclude that he must be formless, because he doesn't have any mundane form, Nirgun. So the term which is there is Nirgun. So they make him Nirgun, means they think Nirgun means he doesn't have any form. But Nirgun actually means beyond the 3 modes. The gunas means His form is beyond the three modes. That's the actual meaning of nirguna. Guna means, the term guna means the three modes. His form is beyond the three modes. They cannot distinguish between mundane form and the spiritual form. According to them, without mundane form, one must be formless. This conclusion is also mundane because formlessness is the opposite conception of the form. Negation of mundane conception does not establish the transcendental fact. So in Brahma Samhita it is said that the Lord has transcendental form, Sachidananda Vigraha. And that Iswara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha. So in Brahma Samhita it is said that the Lord has transcendental form and that he can utilize any one of his senses for any other purpose. For example, he can eat with his eyes. He can see with his legs. This is the transcendental form means. In mundane conception of form, one cannot eat with the eyes or see with his legs. That is the difference between mundane body and spiritual body, Sachidananda. A spiritual body is not formless. It has a spiritual form. It is different type of body of which we cannot conceive with our present mundane senses, right? Like we cannot conceive of many things, in fact, like we cannot conceive of eternal time. So many such things with our present understanding, we cannot understand that. Formless, therefore, means devoid of mundane forms or possessing a spiritual body which is of which the non-devotees can have no conception by speculative method. So Lord cannot be understood by logic and arguments. The Lord discloses to the devotees his unlimited varieties of transcendental bodies, all identical with one another, with different kinds of bodily features. Some of the transcendental bodies of the Lord are blackish, some of them are whitish, some of them are reddish, and some of them are yellowish. Some of them are four-handed, some of them are two-handed, some of them are like fish, some of them are like lion. All these different transcendental bodies of the Lord, without any differential categories, are disclosed to the devotee of the Lord by the mercy of the Lord, and thus the impersonalist false argument claiming the formlessness of the Supreme Truth do not appeal to the devotee of the Lord, even though such a devotee may not be very advanced in devotional service. So the bottom line over here is we hear about all these things, but depending on the faith of the person, one can be deviated towards the impersonal side or the personal form of the side. Personal form. One may be attached to the impersonal or personal forms. So the faith is a very key thing. Adav Shraddha, having little faith. But this faith is, as Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, before getting that faith, one has to get two things. One is they get little mercy of devotee, Satam Kripa. And then they perform some service, that is Mahat Seva. So when this Agyata Sukriti, which is deposited into devotee's account by a devotee, so basically a bhakta carries bhakti in their heart, and by their prayers, they transform that bhakti into the heart of the other person who is not a devotee yet. And when this Agyata Sukriti accumulates for lifetimes, then the faith is generated. The faith is generated in the devotees, the faith is generated for the scriptures, for the Guru Paramparas, and also for Krishna. This is how the faith is built up. So it is a devotee who actually gives this Satam Kripa. By mercy of a devotee, a person gets bhakti and a taste in bhakti. And then he carries forward that by his own practice in association of devotees. Okay, so Prabhupada bashes the impersonalism concept in this, and then further continues that Lord is having a form, and he's having his dham, and he is also performing activities in his dham along with his devotees. So this is what is given in this paragraph. I think, yeah, this is the last paragraph of this verse. So the Lord has unlimited number of transcendental qualities, and one of them is his affection for his unalloyed devotees, his pure devotees. In the history of mundane world, we can appreciate his transcendental qualities. The Lord incarnates himself for the protection of his devotees and for the annihilation of faithlessness. Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya cha duskrita. This 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. His activities are in relation with his devotees. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of such activities of the Lord in relation with his devotees. And the non-devotees have no knowledge of such pastimes. So this is only related to the devotees. Bhakto si me sakha cheti. This sakha was particularly for Arjuna, but for us it is bhakta. The Lord lifted Govardhan hill when he was only 7 years old and protected his devotees at Vrindavan Dham from the wrath of Indra, who was overflooding the place with rain. Now this lifting of Govardhan hill by a 7-year-old boy may be unbelievable for the faithless. It is unbelievable for the faithless. But for the devotee, it is absolutely believable. So why it is absolutely believable? Because he's having this unflinching faith. The devotee believes in the Almighty's potency of the Lord, while the faithless says that the Lord is Almighty but does not believe it. Such men with poor fund of knowledge do not know that the Lord is the Lord eternally, and that one cannot become Lord by meditation for millions of years or by mental speculation for billions of years. He is Lord eternally. His position is not changed. Whether he's a 7-year-old boy, whether he's a 1-day-old child, right? This impersonal interpretation of mundane wranglers is completely refuted in this verse, because it is clearly stated herein that the Supreme Lord has his qualities, forms, pastimes, and everything that a person has. Very nice verse actually. This can be used for preaching. All these descriptions of transcendental nature of the personality of Godhead are factual realization by the devotees of the Lord. So at this point of time, all these things are also theory for us to some extent, right? But as we progress in our spiritual life, as we become more sincere and practice our bhakti with more sincerity, then we will also be one day revealed, or we will be given the opportunity to realize these things. We just have to keep faith. And for building the faith, we have to constantly associate with like-minded people. So this association of like-minded people means the association of devotees. So in association, our faith actually increases. And by the causeless mercy of the Lord, they are revealed to his pure devotees and to no one else. So only pure devotees can understand. At this stage in time, we are not there yet. We are practicing devotees. However, we have some kind of realization by the mercy of our Guru Parampara and the association of devotees and Lord himself. We have some realization. However, we will realize more as we progress in our bhakti. So we have to become more serious in hearing this. Okay, so now we are going to start, or actually Lord is going to start answering these 4 questions. So what is the first question, which is asked in verse number 26? The question is about Lord's form. Please tell me about your material and spiritual form. This is the question that was asked by Brahmaji. Now, this is the first answer, and the purports which we are going to read, as I explained, actually I mentioned in the WhatsApp group. that these are highly technical purport given by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and even Srila Jiva Goswami's purports are in the similar line. So I only covered Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport and Srila Prabhupada's purport. So purports are very long, very technical. If you do not understand anything while I'm speaking, I'll try my best to explain the way in which I understood. If you don't understand anything, please please speak up, and I'll stop and try to explain that again. Okay, I'll give my best to do that. So let's read the first verse, verse number 33. First Catuh Sloki. Aham evasam evagre nanyad sad asatyat param paschadaham yad etaccha yo avishyaseta so asmi aham. So important verse that each line has been explained in details by citing various references by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So that's the first purport we are going to read, is Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's purport. Okay. So as I said earlier also, this Bhagavatam is expansion of these 4 verses. These 4 verses are expanded into 18,000 verses. And the commentary is explanation of each and every word of this verse. So the first line says, Aham evasam evagre. So here, for these 4 verses, I'm also going to read the literal translation. So aham means I, eva means certainly, asam means existed, eva. So evasam evagre. Eva means only, and agre means before. So the line is translated as, I alone existed prior to the creation of the universe. So if you compare this verse with the Catuh Sloki Gita, which is Bhagavad Gita chapter 10 verse 8. So this verse so let's complete it, and then I'll come back to this 10.8. So here Krishna first saying that aham evasam evagre, I alone existed prior to the creation of the universe. Second line, nanyad yad sad asat param. So na means never, anyat anything else, yat all those, sat the effect, asat the cause, param the supreme. So this means that I am non-different from that. Now this word Brahman is not mentioned there. Right? So, but Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Prabhupada also clarifies that. So first read without this word Brahman, then it is very cryptic. I am not different from that which is superior to all cause and effect. So this is one way of reading it. But when we add the word Brahman, then it is very clear. So he is saying, the Lord is saying, I am not different from that Brahman. Brahman means the Brahmajyoti, which is superior to all cause and effect. So this is the meaning of second line. Paschadaham yad etacha. So then Krishna says, or Lord Vishnu says that Paschat means at the end. Aham, I, the personality of Godhead, yat, all this, etat, creation, cha, also. Right? So after creation, I only exist. Right? So far he says that before creation, I exist. I am same as that Brahman, which is superior to cause and effect. The third line is saying, after creation, I only exist. So I tried to put this or picturize this. So before creation, the Supreme Lord exists. While the creation happens and creation is being maintained, also the Supreme Lord exists. And the third, which is the last line, Yo avasisyate so asmi aham. So yaha means everything, avasishyata means remains, saha that, asmi I am, aham I, the personality of Godhead. So after destruction or dissolution, I only remain. So prior to creation, the Supreme Lord exists. While creation and maintenance, Supreme Lord exists. And after the annihilation also, he exists as the Lord of Vaikuntha. So before that, he is also existing as the Lord of the spiritual world. So spiritual world, Vaikuntha, at that same time, both of them actually existing. It's just a word that is being used like that. So before, in the middle, and after, the Lord exists. So nothing except the Lord exists. That's what we Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is going to prove that through his purport. Right? So is it clear? The verse itself, is it clear to?
Yeah, Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So this is Ramukunda. So yeah, I have also some questions.
Yes.
And I have seen like Prabhupada in the context, the word meanings are different of the words. But Sat Asat word in the second line, which is also means eternal. Sat is eternal and Asat is temporary, right? So like, can it be also considered like that, that he is beyond permanent and temporary, or should we not interpret
No,
like
that
that?
is the way. It's not explained in that way. So it is explained, and we are going to go through that in details. But it's a very good question, and there was a lot of discussion I had to go through, and basically I had the same kind of doubt, and I'm going to explain this when we go to that particular point. But I'll bring it up, okay?
Okay.
But thank
I
you.
then also want to understand how Sat is effect. Sorry, Sat is cause and Asat is effect. Maybe that also is that also explained?
Yes, that is all explained in detail. Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. So we are going to go into that detail. Okay. But it's a good question actually. Thank you, bro. Okay, so we move forward. So again, summarizing. So this is talking about, this verse is talking about the Lord's spiritual and material form. And then the Lord replies that I only existed before the creation of the as the Lord of the spiritual world, after creation of the material universe as the super soul and various avatars for its maintenance, and after annihilation, the Lord of the Vaikuntha. Of course, Vaikuntha also means, Vaikuntha means complete Vaikuntha, means Goloka, everything, spiritual world. So, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, explains this first. So, after promising knowledge and giving qualification by blessings. So, after promising knowledge means this happened in the previous verses, the previous two verses where the Lord spoke up, right, to Brahma, that he is going to give the knowledge, jnana and vijnana. And he also gave the blessing. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is writing that after promising knowledge and giving qualification by blessing, in the two introductory verses, those two verses, 31 and 32, the prelude, the Lord now teaches the first aspect of the knowledge. So this is the first aspect of the knowledge he is going to give to Brahmaji concerning the spiritual and material form, which is asked in verse number 26. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, was given vision. So he writes, whenever you read his purport, we get to know many details which are missing somewhere else. So in his purport is first saying that, the Lord is touching his forefinger to his chest, and the Lord says that I alone existed before the creation. Like, sometimes we express ourselves that. And to give stress, we use our hands. So here also the Lord is using his hands and putting his hand on the chest to express that I alone existed before the creation. This is the emphasis that has been given here, that I only existed. There is nothing else existed before me. before this creation. Now here the creation term, when the creation term comes, we by default need to understand that this is the material creation. Spiritual world is eternal, so there is no creation. The creation thing, creation, maintenance, dissolution, and this we studied in the prior verses, right? Where in one of the purports, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that there is no creation, maintenance, and annihilation in the spiritual world, indicating that there is no sattva gun, no rajogun, no tamogun, because for rajogun is required for creation, for maintenance sattva gun, and for annihilation there is the tamogun that is needed. So in the spiritual world it is eternal, so nothing is needed like that. So it is nirguna, it is beyond these three modes. By the word eva, he excludes all other. Means I alone, when he's saying aham eva sa evagre, this eva. So by this word eva, he excludes all other, including Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva. So even Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva didn't exist at that time. Nothing of my category. What is the category of Lord? What is the tattva of Lord? Vishnu tattva existed at that time. The most attractive form which you now see, a sweet ocean of form and qualities, existed before the creation, at the time of great devastation of all the universes. So before the creation and after the dissolution, this form is going to stay. It's going to remain. I only existed. That's what Krishna is saying. And after dissolution, which is towards the end, he is only staying there. He is only existing. Nobody else is existing. Therefore, this form is eternal form. This is the eternal form. This proves the eternality of the form, this particular form of the Lord. Now, the following are the references to prove this claim. So, in the Shruti, it is said, Vasudevo va agra asinna brahmana cha shankaraha. Vasudeva exists prior to the universe. Brahma and Shiva did not exist. So this is there in the Shruti. Then also another part of Shruti, it is said, Purusho ha vai Narayana. The Lord is Narayana. Eko ha vai Narayana asit. Lord Narayana alone existed. So these are from the references from Shruti. Now, after the Lord existed, how come this universe came into existence? So that has been discussed next by Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He is saying that Lord Narayana desired to become many. So I'm not going to read the verse. Lord Narayana desired, what did he desire? From Narayana was born Brahma, and from who all living entities arise. So this is if we remember chapter 5 of Canto 2, how the creation comes into existence, or how the creation actually manifests. So at that time we saw that, Karanadakshay Vishnu. So Karanadakshay Vishnu, from his eyes, if you remember that, let me open up the PowerPoint. So the glance of Mahavishnu or Karanadakshay Vishnu. So the Pradhan is there, and then the Lord impregnates the Pradhan with Jiva, along with the karma and the Svabhava of the Jiva and the time, which is the Kala. And we discussed that Kala is like a stirring rod. When we are cooking, then you put all the ingredients in the vessel, and then you need a rod to move the things. So the time is like that. If the time is not there, things will not start happening. So when the gunas are agitated by this time factor, the pradhan turns into Mahatattva, and Mahatattva, which is predominantly the mode of goodness. And then from next transformation that happens is Sutra Tattva, which is predominantly in the mode of passion. Now, all these things are happening under the glance of, or under the superintendence of the Supreme Lord. So then, from Sutra Tattva, then we see Ahankar, which is predominantly in the mode of tamas. And then this Ahankar has again three mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. So the Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, Dravya Shakti. The point I'm trying to bring up over here is the presence of the Supreme Lord, or the glance of the Supreme Lord, is needed for all these things to happen. Right? Without his glance, things won't move forward. Right? So the Lord desired. Why the Lord desired? So it is again explained, because the living entities who are within the body of the Lord, they actually have a desire to start doing some activities. So therefore, Lord helps in the process of creation. Right? So from Narayana, Brahmaji was born, from whom all the living entities arise. Now, this doesn't mean that Brahmaji is actually manifesting all these living entities in this stage. So in this stage, the living entities are not active. They didn't get any body. In the later stage, when the universes, the shell of the universes, these are created, right? So these are our creation of the 23 elements and all these things. And then later, this 23 elements get attached to this, the shell of the universe, right? And then further, Mahavishnu expands into each of the universe as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. And from the lotus, from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, which is probably not discussed here, from the navel of Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, Brahmaji appears. And after the appearance of Brahmaji, then he desires to create, which comes back to this chapter. He has a desire to create. And therefore he is praying to, he is performing the tapasya, and the Lord becomes happy on him, and then he asks all these questions. And then he does the secondary creation. Brahmaji performs this secondary creation where he gives bodies to those living entities which are there with Lord Brahma within this universe. So there are so many universes. Each universes will have different Brahma and different set of living entities with them. Okay? And they have different desires, and based on their desires, a body is given to them. So that body which is given to them is given by Brahma. So here, when we read this particular section, we must understand in that way. From Narayana was born Brahma, which is why it says Narayana, because again, if you see the form of Mahavishnu is actually coming from the 4 expansions which are actually coming, the secondary expansions which are coming from Narayana. So let me open another diagram which explains that. Okay. So these expansions which are coming from Narayana, these are called as quadruple expansions. The first quadruple expansions, second quadruple expansion. Okay. So here we see from the second quadruple expansion, these are the quadruple means 4, okay, So Dvitya Chaturvyuha. The first quadruple expansion is explained here. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Aniruddha and Pradyumna. This is the first quadruple expansion, or Adi Chaturvyuha. From that Adi Chaturvyuha comes the form of Lord Narayana. From Lord Narayana, there is a Dvitya Chaturvyuha, which is Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna and Aniruddha. And from Sankarshan, the expansion of Purusha avatar happens. That is the first Purusha avatar, which is Karuna Dakshaya Vishnu. So this is how the flow is. So again, coming back here. So instead of saying Mahavishnu desired, here it is appropriate to say Lord Narayana desired. So therefore Lord Narayana word is used. From Narayana was born Brahma. So we know that Brahmaji was born from whom? From Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. So interchangeably these names can be used. From whom all the living entities arise. So from Brahmaji, he gives bodies to all the living entities. Narayana is the supreme Brahman, the supreme principle. He is most worthy of worship. The highest truth, the supreme Brahman, dark in complexion with yellow cloth. So these descriptions are given. Dark in complexion means bluish color. Right? So here the reference for this verse is Eko Narayana Asin Na Brahma Na Ne Shasnaha. Narayana alone existed, Brahma and Shiva did not exist. This is Maha Upanishad. Now this is another proof from Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavan, who exists in the form of Paramatma and Brahman, according to the viewpoint, alone existed before the creation of the universe, when the desire to create bodies of the jivas was absent. So basically, before the creation and after the dissolution, everything goes within the body of Karana Dakshaya Vishnu. So at that time only Bhagavan, or who has existed as Paramatma and Brahman, according to the viewpoint, alone existed before the creation. This is there in Srimad Bhagavatam 3.5.23. This is explained there. So now the question is, so here we have said that the Lord desired to become many. Right? So where did the Lord exist before the creation? That question can come. So this has been answered here. When the Lord says that he alone existed, it also means that his associate in Vaikuntha also existed. So his associates are also there with him. That's where he is existing before the creation. So he is performing pastime with his associate. Now the example can be understood is in this way, with the analogy that how can we say that the Lord existed with his associate? So that is being trying to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is trying to explain here. It also means that his associates in Vaikuntha also existed, since they are his parts. Right? So the example of a king is given. This is similar to saying that the king goes, meaning that the king goes with his attendants. When the king will never travel alone, right? With his associates only he will travel. The associates of the Lord are in condition similar to the Lord. Parikshit said that. So there is a the reference which is given over here, right, to prove this particular point. Another way you can understand is I see the sun. So when I say I see the sun means I just don't see the sun, but I see the sun rays. Or if I say I see the moon, so along with the moon we are also seeing the light of the moon. So similarly over here, when somebody says the king goes or the president is going, I see the president. So the president is not alone. He goes with his along with his associates, right? Or people who are protecting him, or some friends or something like that, So therefore, when the Lord says that he existed before the creation, it indicates that he existed along with his associate and his abode. is there in his abode, and all these associates and abode are all eternal. So this is the question that is asked by Parikshit Maharaj. Please describe where this Purusha, the creator, maintainer and destroyer of the universe, the lord of the Maya, dwelling within the being but untouched by his Maya, lies down. So this is asked in remember, if you remember, in that 8th chapter he is asking many questions. So in the 8th chapter 10th verse is asking this question. That means the question indicates that he has, Maharaj Parikshit has some idea about the creation and the destruction, whatever happens during that time. So therefore he is asking this question. And then similarly Vidura asks this question, please describe how many dissolutions there are for the elements of the material nature, and who survives after the dissolutions to serve the Lord while he is asleep. So from the question we have some assumption. So Vidura is asking that how many dissolutions are there. That means there are many dissolutions, and he knows about that. There are that the dissolution, after the dissolution somebody is there. Therefore he is asking who survives. So not everybody is destroyed while the dissolution is happening. And then who is serving the Lord? That means the Lord is eternal. So these are the the verses which Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur very appropriately putting here to prove that the Lord existed before this creation. Also Srila Sridhar Swami explains that at the time of dissolution, who will worship the Supreme Lord as a king by waving a chamara, and who will accompany the Lord in sleep. So this has been given, the answers are given there. This is the verse which is talking about this. In Skanda Purana, in the Kashi Khanda, it explains about the associates of the Lord, and it explains that the associates of the Lord are eternal. So this is the verse. Na chavantehi mad bhakta mahatyam pralaya padi atochuta akhila loke sa eka swargo avyaya. My devotees do not perish even at the time of universal destructions. The Lord alone is indestructible and all-pervading in all planets. So this Purana, these references are very important. Any questions so far?
So Prabhu, I have one question. So Prabhu, it is mentioned that before creation, even Lord Brahma did not exist and Lord Shiva did not exist. So Brahma I can understand, but Lord Shiva, we also say that he has a special position where he is in the spiritual world as well as material world, right? He is in the on the border there. So does he exist there, and how to understand that Lord Shiva did not exist?
Yeah. So
Lord,
yeah, nice question. So we refer the diagram to explain this. So see, Lord Shiva as a planet, this Sadashiva Loka, right? So this is actually the Vishnu Tattva form. Shiva Tattva form only generates for this creation purpose.
I see.
So he exists there, and this is within the Brahma Jyotir, which is eternal. And this form of Lord Shiva is a Vishnu Tattva form.
Okay.
So then
Lord Shiva is Vishnu Tattva. Okay, got it.
Right. And basically, when Lord Shiva assists in the annihilation purpose, in the material world, so then that tattva is called as a Shiva tattva or Shambhu tattva. First of all, he explains, he helps in the process of creation, beginning with the process of creation. Then he enters into this realm within this material world. Yeah. Actually, also within the material world, there are certain places which is not annihilated when the destruction happens, like Dhruva Loka. This is eternal planet within this material world. There is another eternal planet within this material world above the Brahma Loka, or Satya Loka rather. So this kind of details are given. But as you asked about Lord Shiva, his role is he is in charge of the destruction of this universe, right? Cleansing, cleaning department, let's say, put it like that. He is in charge of that, but he is not so basically he is also a guna avatar, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he is also a guna avatar. He is the guna avatar in charge of the ignorance department, because ignorance is required for the destruction. Okay.
Got it.
Anything else?
So, Prabhu, just another thing which you mentioned, I thought that when this universe gets annihilated at the end of the life of Brahma, you're saying Dhruva Loka still remains?
Yes.
Still?
Yes, it is eternal. And in I think next purport that is discussed. You will see that in the next purport.
Okay, bro. Thank you.
Yeah. Though it is in the material world, they still remains. It's not destroyed. Okay. Okay. So if the Lord is explaining that I am, before the creation I exist, so does it mean that he doesn't do anything because he is not mentioning about his activities? So that question is being answered here by Suleveshana Chakra Thakur. The word asam means I existed, excludes anything without substance, without functioning. So I'll go into more detail in the next line and explain this. The verb as indicates something existing. Because of my existing, complete non-existence is not at all possible. Now this is a little cryptic to understand, so let's cover a little bit more and then explain this part. This should be understood from the verb I alone existed. This, however, does not mean that I did not do anything. So this jugglery of these words existing and non-existing is the punchline to understand. That is, this, however, does not mean that I didn't do anything. So I existed means I existed as a personality, but that personality has some functions. So for example, what is the function of Mahavishnu? So his functioning is, the purpose of his appearance, incarnation, not incarnation, but his existence, Mahavishnu or Karanadaksha Vishnu, is the purpose is creation. So from him, from his body, or the pores of his body, all these universes, they come out, right? So once that, so he is functioning as a creator of this universe, right? So this is one of his job, right? But at the same time, he is doing other things also. Like example can be given that, and then from this example it will be more clear that during the weekend the school is not functioning. Let's say somebody says that during the weekend the school or the college is not functioning. So that doesn't mean that the teachers and the students of that school or college are not doing anything. They are engaged in something different. So they are actually taking break from their capacity as a student or as a capacity of a teacher. But other kind of activities are going on, still going on, right? So here when this word is explained that I existed, that doesn't mean that the Lord did not do anything. He is not functioning as is not functioning in the capacity of a creator, maintainer, or destroyer of the material world, but he is very much active in his spiritual capacity. So this is what is explained by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that if the word I existed is only taken, then doesn't mean that before the creation or after the annihilation, that doesn't mean that he is not doing anything else. He is not acting in that in the capacity of creator, maintainer, or destroyer of the material world, but he is spiritually active. He is inactive as creator, maintainer, or destroyer of the material world, but other capacity in other capacities like spiritual capacities, he is fully active. The statement does not exclude other actions, since the verb as in connected with the other root verbs. So, and then here from examples actually we will understand this, because this is a little bit complex to understand. So we'll just understand the example. If one says Chaitra existed in that village last year, it does not mean that he did not eat, or he did not sleep, or he did not sit there, right? He was existing in the that village in the last year. That also includes that he is existing as well as he is doing something else too. Though the eva can indicate absence of the activities, he alone existed. It can also mean like that, right? By the sense of the statement, it means he performed these activities. So when eva asam, these two words are combined, then it indicates that he was not functioning as creator or a maintainer or destroyer, but he was active in spiritually. Now in the 10th canto, I think chapter number 88, the description, normally when we hear about Mahavishnu, we only see that the Mahavishnu is lying down and he is engaged in the creation process, right? Creation, maintenance, and destruction process. However, in one of the chapters in Krishna book, I think it is chapter number 88, there is a pastime which indicates that Mahavishnu steals the Brahmana's son, and then Krishna and Arjuna, they go to his abode, and then the description of the abode is given, because Mahavishnu wanted to see Krishna's form personally. So therefore, he knew that Krishna is going to come to his abode to pick up those children. So Krishna goes there along with Arjuna, and the travel from this planet, earthly planet realm, to Mahavishnu's loka is also described there. So it's not that he is doing just creation maintenance. He is also actively engaged in performing his spiritual pastimes. That's what is the indication given over here by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. The word asam in Bhagavad Sandarbha, this is said, the word asam excludes actions such as creation, which are subject to the awareness of person with material bodies such as Brahma. However, the word do not exclude Lord's spiritual pastimes. So this is in Bhagavad Sandarbha by Jiva Goswami, this explanation is given. The word asam eva excludes actions such as creation, right? Means this is not functioning as a creator, which are subject to the awareness of a person's material body such as Brahma. However, the word do not exclude Lord's spiritual pastimes, means he is spiritually active. If one says that presently the king does not perform any activity, this is the example given, more examples given for us to understand. If one says that presently the king does not perform any activities, it means he does not perform his activity as a king, but does not mean that he does not does not eat or sleep, right? So it includes other kind of activities. Functioning as a king he is not doing at this point of time, but as his normal chores he is doing. Is this clear? Okay, I assume it's clear. Next comes the point where Ram Mukund Prabhu, you brought up this question, right? Sad Asat Param. So this point is now being explained now. Okay, Nanyad Sad Asat Param. I am not different from that. That means over here, that means Brahman, which is superior to cause, all cause and effect. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur addresses this point as below. Sometimes it is said that the impersonal Brahman existed. Only the impersonal Brahman existed. So in some of the scriptures, we will see that it is said that only in the Vedic scriptures, of course, it is said that only impersonal Brahman existed, and then from this impersonal Brahman, all the existence comes or manifests. Right? So this is there. It's there in the scriptures, right? In answer to this, it is said that in this verse that Brahman, which is superior to effect, which is Sat, and cause, which is Asat, is not different from me. So I'm going to break up this part and try to explain what it means over here. So in fact, I had a doubt about this particular thing, that in my understanding, the cause should have been Sat and the effect should have been Asat. I thought it's a typing mistake. So therefore, why the cause is Sat? Because the material world is created by the Supreme Lord. So this was my thought process. So he is the Sat, and the material world itself is the effect, which is Asat. Right? So I thought it's a typing mistake. So then I clarified with my Guru Maharaj, and in fact Maharaj had some doubts. So Maharaj actually wrote to Hari Parshad Prabhu as well as His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj to clarify this particular point. So Hari Parshad Prabhu wrote back that this Sat over here means manifest effect, which is Karya Brahma. And so this is correct actually. Whatever was there, effect is Sat and cause is Asat, is correct. And he explained that, that this Sat over here means manifest effect or Karya Brahma, and the cause over here is Asat, which is unmanifest cause, which is Karana Brahma. So still it was not very clear to me why this Karya Brahma and Karana Brahma was written. This was not very clear to me. So then later, His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj, he gave the clarification as such. So I have put His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj's understanding over here in this box. So he said that in terms of cause and effect, the effect is what we see. So whatever we see, that is effect. Like for example, somebody got a promotion, so that is effect. Right? Somebody got into accident, so that accident which we are seeing is the effect, and we are seeing through our eyes. Right? So this is manifest effect. I am seeing through my own eyes. But what was the reason for that? Why did it happen? That we don't see, right? So that is the cause. So read through that angle. When we read through that angle, then it makes it more clear. So I'll read again. In terms of cause and effect, the effect is what we see, the result, right? Effect means the result which we are seeing, and is thus Sat. So it is Sat because over here it is meant like that, because we are seeing it. Right? Therefore, effect is Sat. We are seeing it through our eyes. It is manifested in front of us. Therefore, it is Sat. whereas the cause is unseen. For what reason it was happening is unseen, or asat as in. So then he further clarifies this through this statement from Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Lila. So sat means effect, means what we can see. Asat means cause, which we cannot see. And the param refers to the ultimate truth. So param over here, sat, asat, param. Sat means what we are seeing, asat which we are not seeing. And param means he is refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental to cause and effect. So if we take the impersonalist scriptures, they, according to the impersonalist scriptures, the impersonalist Brahman is from which everything else manifests. And according to us, the Bhagavata philosophy, the impersonal Brahman is just a bodily effulgence of the Supreme Lord. So the Supreme Lord is the actual cause. Now, the actual cause is Krishna over here. He is saying that I am non-different from that Brahman. He is non-different from the Brahman. Means he is same as Brahman. Non-different from means he is same as Brahman. Now there is one verse which we can quote to understand this, and that is from the what is that verse? Is it there in the first canto? I think second chapter. Brahmeti. So the verse is, I was forgetting the verse. Vadanti. Tattvavidas Tattvam 1 to 11. Vadanti tat tattvavidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti sabdate. So learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth call this non-dual substance Brahman. Means it is one, Advayam. Brahman, Paramatma and Bhagavan, they are actually all same. They are non-dual. So they are same, and then coming back to this, Krishna is also saying the same thing. I am non-different from that Brahman, which is superior to cause and effect. So what is this cause and effect? So according to Srila Bhanuswami Maharaj, he is saying that Sat means effect, which you are seeing it. Asat means the cause. And Param refers to the ultimate truth, which is transcendental to the cause and effect. So the Supreme Lord is the same as Brahman, which is superior to cause and effect. So if you picturize this in your mind, that from for the impersonalist, this Brahma Jyoti is the source of all this creation. But for us, Bhagwan is the source of all this creation, right? Bhagwan and the expansions of Bhagwan. So this part is actually Param. Even if you take the impersonal philosophy, then this part is Param, which is superior to cause and effect. So what is the effect? Effect has been discussed as over here is this manifested universe. We can see through our eyes. So this manifested universe is Sat, which is effect. And what is the cause? So this cause The cause of the creation is the Mahat Tattva, or the total material energy, and its effect is the creation itself. So the cause is Mahat Tattva, which we studied in chapter number 5. Right? So from Mahat Tattva, Pradhan, Mahat Tattva, all the creation begins. And we can't see that. So the cause which we can't see is being discussed as Asat, or unmanifest cause. And the things which we can see, which is this universe, is the effect, and therefore it is called as Sat. Okay, so I'll stop here. And if you have any doubts, I'll try to explain this again. Is it clear? Ramukund Prabhu?
Yeah, Prabhu. So what I understood is Sat means eternal, but it is not exactly spiritual world, but it is more is cause and effect, as it is mentioned, right? So it means in some other verses in Bhagavad Gita, Sat is considered as eternal and spiritual world, and right. But I think here the context is, in this context, we cannot take the same meaning. That's what I understood, Prabhu.
Exactly. And actually, when I took the same meaning as what you are thinking about, I understood that, the effect should be Asat and the cause should be Sat. Right?
Yeah.
Therefore, I started this discussion. I couldn't understand the way you are understanding. I also understood in the same way in the beginning. Therefore, I asked question to Guru Maharaj, and Maharaj was having a little confusion, so he in fact asked question to Hari Parshad Prabhu, and also to His Holiness Bhanu Swami Maharaj. So both of them answered, and now does it make sense? What is the meaning over here? Sat means the effect which we can see. Asat means what is the cause behind that effect which we can't see.
Cannot see. Yeah, that is clear, Prabhu. Now
is clear.
Thank you.
And
Yes,
Brahman is superior to both of them.
Yeah.
Now you read it like this: I am not different from that Brahman, which is superior to cause and effect. So now when you see cause over here, it is Mahatattva. Effect is what? Material world, which we see. So this is Asat and this is Sat.
Right. This makes sense. Brahman is also it is non-different than Bhagavan.
Yes.
When given that reference to the Brahmeti Paramatmeti, that verse, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yes, Prabhu, it is clear. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, so I'll move forward. This means that I alone appear as impersonal Brahman in some scriptures. So we discussed this point that that in some of the scriptures, the impersonal Brahman is considered as the source of creation. In some of the scripture, it is there. Now, why it is there? That has been explained in this particular paragraph. This means that I alone appears as the impersonal Brahman in some scripture, which cannot express the various quality arising from my Swarupa. So, this scriptures does not express that the Lord has qualities. Why? Because the readers are not qualified. So somebody who is attached to reading or has faith in impersonal philosophy, they cannot express that the Lord has qualities, forms, pastimes, and all these things. So what are they lacking? They're lacking this qualification. So I put a note that, see, this is actually a lack of the qualification of the reader. They don't have faith. Because of their lack of qualification, for them, these scriptures are made. And because they have attraction towards this impersonal liberation. They want impersonal liberation. So Supreme Lord is facilitating that too for them. But you should know, now this Lord is saying Supreme Lord is saying to Lord Brahmaji, but you should know me endowed with forms and qualities because you have my blessings and mercy. as expressed in the previous verse. So you should understand me that I have form. You should not understand that I am formless. And for that reason, the Lord showed him his form. His form, and he gave him the blessings too, that by my mercy you will know my dimensions, my intentions, my pastimes, etc. Now the third line of the verse, Paschadaham yad etacha. So the meaning is, after creation I only exist. So when the creation happens, coming back to the diagram, so the creation has begun, and now the Lord Mahavishnu has created the universes. Then he enters into the universe as Garbhodakshay Vishnu, and from the navel of Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Lord Brahma appears, and then also Lord creates all the structure. Actually, the structure is within this stem, the lotus. The entire universe is within this lotus stem. So all these lokas are within this lotus stem, and then the creation gradually manifests, and then the living entities are also manifested by the will of the Lord through Brahma, and the Brahmaji gives the body simultaneously. It's not like evolution happening. Simultaneously, all the living entities are given different bodies. All the 8,400,000 species appears simultaneously. So that all those things appears, and the creation is then maintained by the Lord himself as Kshirodakshay Vishnu. Right? So coming back to the purport, after the creation only I exist, because he is there also in every atom. So all the forms of the spiritual world, these are all happening simultaneously. Karnadakshay Vishnu, Garbhodakshay Vishnu, Paramatma forms, avatars, the universal forms. Right? So all these things are simultaneously there. So that is what Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is explaining. After the creation, that universe alone is observed and not you. In the answer to this verse says, even after the creation I only exist. I exist as Bhagwan in Vaikuntha, and as a Paramatma within the universe, and as the various avatars such as Matsya and at certain times. And then he also exists, he also appears as a universal form. So while the creation is happening or going on, it's not that in the spiritual world the Lord doesn't exist. He exists simultaneously in the spiritual world as well as in the material world. So now the question is that when we see this manifested form of the universe, is it the Lord? Like we see, these cars, we see all these mountains, the rivers, all the houses, all the non-living entities. So are they Lord or are they not Lord? Part of the Lord or not? So that is being answered. So you are not the earth or the devatas or the animals. Does that mean you are incomplete? Because if you are not that, if you're not earth or you're not the devatas, then you become incomplete because something is not within you. So this was answers. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, this was answers. I alone am this universe. Etat. That is explained by this word etat. This word etatcha. As a whole and composed of individuals. So basically, the creation with the living and the non-living entities, it's all actually Krishna. Because the universe is generated from my energy. Because everything is generated from Krishna's energies. The role of the energy is now being very specifically making it very clear. Because this universe has this particular part of the universe, which is the material universe, is Krishna's external energy. Right? So Antaranga Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, and Tatastha Shakti. So Antaranga is the internal energy, and then Bahiranga is external energy, and the Tatastha is all the living entities. So everything is actually Krishna's energies. So in that way, everything is Krishna. Because the universe is generated from my energy, it is my material form. Actually, this is a template which we studied in Canto 2, chapter 1, 2, and 3, right, in the beginning. About my material form, universal form is the material form of the Lord. Right? So you have asked to know about my spiritual and material form. This is the material form. So that was Lord Brahma's question, if you remember. Please explain about your spiritual and material form. So this universal form from which all these things are created on the basis of this is a template which is given to Brahma. So this is the universal form, if you remember, in our 5th chapter discussion. So this is the template which is given to Lord Brahma, from which the entire creation happens. And in the 3rd canto, we will see how the different parts of this universal form are energized by the Supreme Lord himself, and they start functioning. And by their functioning, the universe is actually functioning. So this is the material form. In a way, Lord has only spiritual form, but we can understand this for our understanding that this is the material manifestation of the universe, is also a material form of the Supreme Lord. Though Lord doesn't have material form. Like, Bahiranga Shakti is also the Lord's form, right? I mean, it's a Lord's energy. But it is external energy. Similarly, he has internal energy and he has Tatastha energy. So like similarly, he has spiritual form and the material form. And then comes the last line. Yo avisheshyeta so asmi aham. I alone am the Supreme Lord, expressed by the word yo avisheshyeta. Bhavan ekda sishyate sesha samagna. You alone remain, and you alone known as Ananta Shesha Naga. So this is there in the 10th canto, 3rd chapter, 25. Why it says Ananta Shesha Naga? Because the form of, as we just studied, that the expansion of Mahavishnu is from Shankarshan. So this expansion from the Chaturvyuha, the expansion of Purusha Avatar, the first Purusha Avatar, Karanadaksha Vishnu, appears from Sankarshan. Therefore, here if we read this part, it says that you alone remain and you are known as Ananta Shesha Naga or Karanadaksha Vishnu himself. The word Aham is repeated 3 times to define the Lord. So thrice the word Aham is used. Aham evasa evagre. Right? These are 3 times. Aham evasam evagre. Nanyat sad yasat param. Then paschat aham, the second time. And then he's saying over here in the last line, yo avisheshyata so asmi aham. So this aham word is used 3 times. So Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains, the word aham is repeated 3 times to define the Lord, who has a supreme form situated through all the phases of time and endowed with form and qualities, and which is visible at creation and destruction as the inferior form of the world made up matter. So before the creation, the Lord has a spiritual form, and during the creation and maintenance and destruction phase, then we see the inferior form of the Lord, which is temporary. And then again we see the superior form or higher form of the Lord, which is spiritual. Right? So in conclusion, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, thus knowledge of the superior and inferior forms, the 2 forms, material and spiritual form, Because if you remember what was Lord Brahma's question, I want to understand. Okay, let's go here. Please tell me about your material and spiritual forms. Right? So the Lord has explained both. He has given the knowledge of both the superior and the material form. Right? Thus, the knowledge of the superior and the inferior form. Superior is the spiritual form. Inferior is the material form of the Lord has been explained. Brahma should have realization, Vijnanam, of the first, the superior spiritual form. Why? Because, the Lord actually came in front of him and he gave him darshan. So, he has the partial realization of the superior form. He doesn't have the vision of the Goloka yet. He will be getting the darshan of Goloka based on the development of his bhakti. So here Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur writes, this realization will occur when Brahma can relish the sweetness of the Lord's form and quality by prema bhakti, produced through hearing and chanting. This will be explained in the fourth verse. Right? So there are the fourth Catuh Sloki is, as we discussed earlier, the fourth Catuh Sloki is going to explain that, how to realize the form or how to realize these four verses by the process of prema bhakti. So for now, he has some vijnana, some realization of the first superior spiritual form, but he will get the vision or he will get the realization of the even superior form of the Lord in Goloka by the process of prema bhakti, when he reaches the stage of prema bhakti, which is achieved through the process of hearing and chanting. Okay, this was a tough purport to read as well as explain. So any doubts, any thoughts? Any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Prabhuji, there was a discussion about Dhruv Loka. So
Yes.
there is one Dhruv Loka in each inverse, Prabhu, material world. So
I am not sure about that. I can check and let you know. But generally the structures of the universes are same. So I assume that there will be same Dhruva Loka over there.
Yeah, okay. So I was thinking just like Brahma is a position, is Dhruva also a position like that? Every inverse has one. That's what.
Yeah, I don't. That's a good question. I don't know answer. I can check and answer and check and let you know.
Okay, Prabhu.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, for Brahmaji, we are sure we know that Lord revealed that in one of the pastime devotees they go and meet. Many Brahmas actually come and meet. Once our Brahma got a little proud and that he has 4 heads and all this. But then the Lord manifested other Brahmas with hundreds and thousands of heads.
Yeah, I have heard that, Prabhu. Yeah.
Okay. Any other thing? Okay. So if not, then we'll move to Srila Prabhupada's purport. Actually, it's 9:03. So probably we'll stop here and start with Srila Prabhupada's purport in the next class. Okay, so since you don't have any other questions, so I'll stop here. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur ji ki jai. Srila Brahma ji ki jai. Srila Narad Muni ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Bol. We'll see you again. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.